You are listening to the Julie Parker Practice Success Podcast, where you discover management insights and strategies for your successful dental practice. There are also interviews with key people in the industry who have advice and services to help you and your team achieve great success. Welcome to this episode of the Julie Parker Practice Success Podcast. And I've been observing Dsmile, like many of you out there might have been observing Dsmile around about, being very impressed with how beautiful it looks and the theology behind it as well. And today we're going to be learning all about it with founder and CEO, Dr Joseph Badr. Welcome to the program.
Thanks, Julie. I'm really excited to be able to obviously share the experience and what Dsmile is all about with you and your listeners.
I'm really excited to learn more about it as well. And, I was going to ask you all about it just prior to us starting recording, but it's stuff that everyone will be intrigued about, I'm sure, as well, if they don't know as much about it as they're going to know by the end of the program. So tell us, first of all, about Dsmile, how it came about, what your history is, how you got connected. Give us a bit of a spiel about that.
Of course. I remember we started this conversation before the episode, and we probably thought maybe we should start talking about it now. But look, I think for me, it was after 25 years of running a hygiene program across 5 clinics. And I guess after doing it for so long, it gives you a sort of a certain understanding of what motivates people, and gives you sort of an understanding of the motivation of patients and getting them back into the clinics, but also it's more about what it is that we are doing in the clinic. And for me, after many years, I realized there are so many gaps in that patient journey from when they come into the clinic to when they go home. And the idea is, well, there are a number of challenges and problems, and it's like, let's revisit this journey and see why is it that 70% of people don't floss. Why is it there are so many variations across clinics and clinicians? Why is it people still don't come into the clinic? And why is it that people don't engage in that home care routine? And I think that's probably what got me started on this journey of finding solutions. And it's been quite exciting, challenging, learning a lot, but it's been lots and lots of fun. And even almost the intrigue and the curiosity from the profession and patients as well. It's like, what's all this about? But anyway, so that's what sort of got me on this journey. So it's not just necessarily a product proposition, it's more of a behavioral science exercise.
I love that, because you're really coming from the kind of correct space, if you like, jumping into the psychology of the market and the patients. Absolutely. And trying to understand why they're not going forward with things that they're advised to do for their own health. But aren't human beings like that? I mean, how many times do we tell people who are struggling with their weight, good diets and exercise regimes? Do they do it? No. But the oral health is just the same. We tell smokers all the time not to smoke, and they still smoke.
Right.
And so the oral care side of things, it taps into, I suppose, that similar habitual way we do things, and it takes a lot to actually shift us out from our normal routine. But what have you found when you started tapping into that psychology?
Well, it's almost like, what is it that motivates people, not just on the mechanical level? I mean, we know that people have to brush their teeth to prevent decay and tooth decay and so on. And, we have systems in place and, how to do things and oral hygiene instructions and scripts and brochures and so on. But for me, it's more of, okay, well, what is it that motivates people? And what is it that just, how do you understand people's needs on an emotional, psychological level? So for me, it was, 20 years ago, for example, there were a lot of barriers to reach or to go to the dentist. Pain, the way things look, cost, the smell of the dental clinic. So we embarked 20 years ago on, how can design help in the process? So we looked at the physical clinics, for example, and it's like, well, how can we make it exciting and inviting? Let's look at the color and the way things look. And that's, I guess, when we started the Dsmile clinics. We wanted to use design in order to engage people's sort of emotional state and get them excited about into the dental clinic. And 20 years later, you probably understand, Julie. I mean, you've been in that space for a while as well. Clinics look a lot different. The way we're engaging with patients is a lot different. The customer journey is a lot different. So I think when it comes to, when you look, for example, the wellness agenda, a lot of people, as you mentioned earlier on, they take their diet seriously, their skincare, their the hair routine, whatever it is that they use every day. When it comes to oral health, the dental literacy is pretty poor. People don't realize the link between gum disease and systemic diseases, right? So when you sort of say to people, if you've got gum disease, the risk of cardiovascular disease is quite high. So for us, it's like, well, let's make sure we are revisiting everything that we are doing. I feel that when we started with the home aspect, it's not necessarily the product, it's the visual cue that is missing. It is the quality of the dental products and how they look and how they sit on the bathroom bench. So when you look at the Dsmile kit, it's more about, okay, it's a three-step routine. People need to brush their teeth, people need to floss their teeth, and eventually, use interdentals. I know that's sort of coming soon. But also, some people use mouthwash, and it's something that needs to be encouraged. And that's sort of, I guess, where we started with that journey.
And it's an interesting perspective to understand and bring it to the dental space, that we like to touch and use and feel things that are appealing and attractive. And certainly the old version of a family's bathroom with their cruddy toothbrushes and the toothpaste that's all dried at the end and things, it's not the most attractive stuff. However, we have become so very aesthetic over the generations, haven't we? I mean, now obviously more so than ever, but we do love, you look at some of the, I'm not a huge one for using all the creams and bits and pieces for skincare and things like that. I'm a, soap and water kind of gal. But people who are younger than me know very well that it's the color, the design, the glossiness, the goldenness of the packaging of the stuff. That's what they're buying into, not so much what's inside of it, but they're seeing the value of the product in its packaging. And you're kind of doing that a little bit with the D-Spa, with the Dsmile.
With Dsmile, look, it is. I remember when we embarked on this journey, you look at your value system and say, okay, well, what is it that we are trying to do? Being in dentistry, it's always about, developing relationships and add value, right? And the more you do that, so we sort of brought that into our Dsmile. How can we add value to the human experience? And how do we, what is it that we need to make sure? So the aesthetic, when we look at basically the functionality of it, it's like, what are the ingredients and how should it taste? The design, when we looked at design, the inspiration of it, I've worked with an industrial designer and graphic designer for 20 years. They worked on the Dspa brand as well. It was sort of more of a Japanese inspiration of having like a tea set. So when you actually want to go ahead and use these products, it needs to be more of a ritual. The simplicity of design is quite important. And we need patients to feel proud to have these products on their shelves. So we're introducing a colored range shortly to sort of appeal to the younger generation as well. But then at the same time, where can we make these products? And obviously they have to be Australian made. So we looked at an Australian manufacturers, but also they have to be sustainable. So we engage a sustainability consultant from day one to make sure we get the right advice on refillables, the right material. Initially we started with bamboo, for example, as a sort of a sustainable product. But after a while you learn that it's not really all that sustainable because it requires so much water to grow. Also, from a hygiene perspective, it may not be the best, in the bathroom with moisture and so on. So we ended up coming up with a solution that is, visually amazing. We've won a number of awards. The most exciting design award that we won is the Chicago Athenaeum Award, which is the oldest and the most prestigious global design award, which is something that basically a credit and validation that what we've done is quite great. But anyway, so that's basically, and the packaging is also important, as you mentioned, Jody. It's when people buy something, it's like, what does it look? Does it align with my values? People now are not, everyone's aware about the environmental damage that we are doing to the environment. So everybody wants to engage in that part as well. So from a design perspective, design has to drive habit change. And I can discuss, we can go through also the clinical trials that we've done in the clinics, and share with you that, the visual cue is something that's very important. 80% of patients that have used the kit mention that is something that got them engaged in that process. Then we look at the sustainability component. These products must communicate a story. It's not about just, then you've got the Australian-made aspect of it. But even we look at the supply chain as well, in terms of, who our suppliers are and how can we work with partner clinics to reduce our carbon footprint. So this is pretty much the story of the Dsmile kit, the design, and what we have tried to do to change the narrative at home, because we know after a while, lecturing doesn't work. And the idea is, okay, let's get something that's going to engage patients without them even having to think about it and drive that habit change that way.
And I'd encourage people out there to really have a think about what their own behaviour is, what they see value is, when all you've got to go off initially at the start is the appearance of something. And I think we absolutely do buy, books and coffee sets and cars and houses, all based on visual appeal at the very start. And then we start to research further into it once it's kind of past that initial gate. And so that side of it's very important. And I think when I was, Carolyn Dean, the magnificent Carolyn Dean, was at Dental Con recently, and she was showing myself and Amina their kits, and we were kind of opening the kits up for the first time, and especially these kind of gift-packed appearance kits where you could be, as a dental practice, for example, giving them as a gift, as a thank you for a referral or welcoming a new patient into the practice, that you're opening this up. This is an experience. It's designed so beautifully. It is far away from the old kind of recall toothbrush, toothpaste in a plastic satchel that you get nowadays. It's a classy design.
Yeah. Look, it's sort of funny you mentioned something about people will look at that visual thing, because for me as a dentist, as someone who wants to change habits, initially when I talk to Mike, we need to communicate the benefits of it. We need to communicate what it does to habit change. It's like, well, it's got to be a visual, because the visual appearance is what gets people excited. And I'm glad that it's beautiful, and I'm glad you've sort of experienced that. But I agree. I think for us, the way we've been doing it now is when new patients come into the clinic, a new patient, for example, and this is sort of when we talk about, okay, that patient journey, the customer journey, and how can we redefine it to get better outcomes, right? So this is sort of, I guess, the summary of it. A new patient comes in, and when they walk away with 3 months worth of dental products. So it's not, well, I ran out of floss, or I didn't know, because I know the traditional way of doing things is you give them a sample of products, a bit of toothpaste in a plastic bag that you end up, I don't know whether you throw it in the bin or whatever, but the idea is we go through the process, oral hygiene instructions based on brush, floss, rinse, and interdentals and whatever it might be. So that when patients go home and they unpack this, they're quite excited about it. They're excited about dental products. They assemble it in their bathroom. And then we have gone through the process of how to brush and the type of brushing. So it actually gives OHTs a template and a framework for them to work with. Then what we do is we connect with patients, do a coaching call, let's say 7 days later, to make sure they've set it all up, they're actually using it, they're engaging with it. And then in 3 or 4 weeks later, we do another touch point to make sure that the habits have changed, because we know habits take 3 to 4 weeks to form. And the idea is it's our opportunity that with every new patient that comes in, we have these touch points to make sure that behavior is changed. And we've done probably we've surveyed about 1,200 customers to try and look at behaviors and what they've done. And we found that on every metric that we've measured, we've got almost over 80% of positive change, whether it comes to brushing, flossing, but even diet as well, because all of a sudden that's a visual reminder that my oral health is important, and they remember what the OHTs have said to them, or the hygienist or the dentist.
You really touched on something so crucial, because this is why our oral health education instructions in the surgery have not been all that successful in the past, I believe. When we don't actually add any other kind of supportive process after the fact, just telling people what to do isn't enough. And I'm trying to recall a study that my husband Charles speaks about, and I'm going to have to make up a few figures because I can't remember it specifically. But it was something like, this doctor had 10 patients or 100 patients, let's say 10 patients who had heart attacks, had heart attacks. And so he put them all on an exercise and diet regime. Yep. This is what you're supposed to do in order to reduce your risk for another heart attack. And of those 10, how many actually shifted behavior? Right. And it was 1 out of 10. So I've got a feeling, it must have been a larger study because I've got 5% in my brain, that only 5% with the threat of death changed their behavior. Wow. And so just telling people what
hope do we have with
That's right. That's right. And so this same entity, whether it be a doctor or a research facility, they then put everyone actually on a proper regime and called them every single week. How are you going with that? They gathered in every single month as a group. And of those people, 80% changed their behavior. And so that's the missing link, is the support link. And that's what Dsmile can really facilitate. Number one, you're providing them, when you're sending them out additional kits thereafter in the right cadence thereafter, they're thinking to themselves, wow, I would have used this toothbrush for a lot longer than that. Or I don't think I've used my mouth rinse because I've got another one coming in. I've still got my full one here. So one, they get this physical evidence of, I need to shift my behavior to be in accordance with this new process. But if you're providing follow-up phone calls after that as well, it's pretty extraordinary.
Look, I think, and again, we can sort of go on about sort of what we have done in the clinic. So we've established almost like 12 touch points in terms of the patient journey and the customer journeys in the clinics, how we communicate, what we communicate, the equipment that we use, the disclosing solution, when and how. So we needed to know that that's been standardized across all clinics, and the framework and the template of the Dsmile cares. Then we sign people up on the onboarding sequence of emails across the journey, and that sort of talks to them about the importance of brushing, flossing. We talk to them about the environmental impact of what we do. But it's almost that the care between the care appointment. So patients are actually getting communication pieces along the journey until their second visit in 6 months' time or 3 months' time, and so on. So the idea is, what happens in the room is quite important. The care between the care appointments is important, and also what people do at home is quite important. So I think you're right, Jewel, because for me as a dentist, it's like, no, it's got to be done. And obviously people have certain, some people may run out of mouthwash a lot earlier, some a lot longer. Some people might have the floss for about a year. But I feel that if we communicate to patients, okay, these are the products that we need. This is basically what you prefer. You prefer interdentals, electric toothbrush, a certain toothpaste. If this is what you want, well, that's what you need every 2 months. Or 3 months. Let's have it delivered to your house every 3 months. And as soon as the kit arrives, okay, I'm not using the floss as much as I should, and my habit needs to change. But hopefully by redefining that whole journey and closing the gaps in that preventive care journey, hopefully we can start to get better outcomes. And that's what we're finding after about 12 months or 18 months, when patients are coming back into the clinics with improved outcomes, less bleeding points, plaque scores, it's sort of a lot less. And more understanding of that, there's more awareness about the link between gum disease and systemic diseases. And I guess that's sort of what every dentist and OHCs are sort of aiming for. And hopefully, if we make a small step in that direction, then, it's great for everyone, right?
Oh, for sure. And I think that's kind of the third point that really does encourage compliance, in that we're hitting benchmarks, we're getting successful, we're achieving progress. And so when they're coming back in after having used Dsmile and getting the refills and all the things and having that support, and then they come back in and the feedback to them is, I see a substantial difference here, then that's the motivation just to keep on going. So what's an ideal way for a practice to incorporate Dsmile into their patients' journey?
Look, all practices have give patients a sort of educational kit or samples of products and some educational stuff. It could be done in a number of ways. So we know that the kit, for example, is not. We do it for every new patient because we know that that's an engagement piece. We know that the word of mouth referrals is going to be a bit higher. And when we sort of compare that to, what you need to spend on marketing, external marketing to try and drive people in. So we usually try and focus on, the patients that we have, an engagement piece, making sure they are a lot stickier when they come to the clinics. Eventually, that's fine. But we do know that obviously the economy is not as great. And if this is, if the kit is a bit expensive to give to every new patient, what we found is a lot of clinics are giving it to patients that are undertaking cosmetic work or orthodontic work, whether it's Invisalign or fixed braces, and they're integrating that in the process. So all they have to do is so patients, partner clinics that have engaged us, we provide them with all the educational material, pretty much with all the data that we've done, with the clinical trials that we've done, to help them along that journey. And they get all the support from, all the support they need to make sure that they integrate it into their routine. So, some clinics say, look, I just want to sell these products, which is great. Other patients or other clinics say, look, we would love to learn pretty much what you've learned and integrate that into our program, whether it's for every patient or whether for certain patients. So, for example, our clinics, we've been seeing patients for a number of years, and some of them don't have the ideal outcomes, right? They still come back with bleeding gums. And so we actually say, look, we've tried everything, nothing's worked, let's try the system and see if it works. So people can actually integrate Dsmile like any other dental company, but obviously with all the benefits that we do offer clinics.
Yeah, I just see it from I'm especially when we have got money being more of an issue for patients nowadays. And so if you are a clinic that's relying heavily on attracting kind of a more transient type of client, whether they're coming in for tooth whitening, other bits and pieces that, are more of a choice rather than a clinical need for them. When we go through financial hard times, those sort of books become more gappy, of course.
Absolutely.
I find myself always saying to clients and students of our program as well, you really want to be recognizing there's 3 categories of patients. Every single practice has these 3 categories of patients in varying percentages of their patient base. The basic one is transient. They're coming along, not particularly loyal. They're just in urgency, and they want to book in with anyone who can see them. The next group are the loyals, and they only ever come to you, whether they've need a checkup and a clean every now and then, or they need any advised treatment or urgent treatment. They'll only ever come to you. They wouldn't dream of going anywhere else. And perpetuals are just like loyals, but they come every single 6 months. And what I do encourage people to do is that you want the loyals and perpetuals. You see everybody, of course.
Right.
But you want the loyals and perpetuals, ideally the perpetuals. They're the ones that will hang around for 15, 20 years. They'll spend money with you every 6 months, plus everything in between as well. And so utilize your marketing opportunities to try to tap into these perpetuals who are currently perpetuals somewhere else. And so we either have to wait for the somewhere else to drop their game and the patient's looking out for something different, or they look at what you do because there's been a lot of chitter-chatter around what you do, and they go, I think I want to go with these guys because they're kind of standing out from the crowd here. And when you are appealing to that group, they need different messaging to the transients, for example. The transients just need to hear, we'll see you on the day of your urgency. But with the perpetuals, they want to get a larger amount of value for their buck. They can spend that dental buck anywhere, but they're going to end up spending it where their patient experience, which is the value they draw from that, from their relationship with you, they want to spend it somewhere where the patient experience is outstanding. And I see the Dsmile side of things, something that would really help to attract that perpetual mindset into your practice. We see patients who really care deeply about their oral health, that are committed to coming every 6 months, committing to their oral health routines, and we support them because we offer Dsmile here as well. And when you consider some of the marketing and promotional opportunities to keep that client base happy, you keep them happy in a different way to everyone else, to keep that client base happy. With my dental practice, I get delivery of all of my oral health needs all the way through my my life. And I get special gift packs when I refer a friend or family member, so that I can, start talking about all the bells and whistles that you guys put on your bits and pieces. I see Dsmile as being fundamental to the promotions and to the message you're trying to send out to appeal to the not right patient base, but to that element of your patient base.
So, that coming from you, Julie, is obviously, incredible because of your experience. You've been in the industry, you've owned your own clinic. I mean, your knowledge in the industry is incredible. So to get this validation and to understand exactly what we're trying to do from someone like yourself is humbling. So thank you, Julie. But I do tend to agree. I think patients and people and customers in general are always looking for a better experience. They always want more. Competition is really, really high out there. And I think for us, if we sort of look at what we do, from the space of how can I add more value? How can I improve, reduce people's pain point when it comes to their preventive care appointment? What is it that we can do in such a way that it's building trust, that it's adding value, building relationships rather than, sometimes obviously we worry about the performance of the practice. But I do feel that if we do all these things right, if we have a team that is inspired and that buys into what we're trying to do and excited about the journey, not just, as a clinician, but how we treat one another and how we treat the customer and the environment. And then that shows through when they deliver that service to the patient. And when the patient comes into the clinic and they experience that, well, that's when you sort of think, well, we've succeeded in that, we've ticked a few boxes, and that's where patients become more loyal. And obviously, this is what every clinic wants, is advocacy. And then, once you've ticked all these boxes when it comes to customer service, then word of mouth referrals and have advocates that sort of sing your praises and build a brand. So I think you're absolutely right. That's a target market. Once you've got patients in that respect your time, we're not, and no clinic should be aiming to please everyone. We know that for a fact. There will be a small group of people that no matter what you do, they're not going to stick around. So, and this is over the last 20, 25 years, Julie. We haven't done a lot of external marketing. I tend to find that with a lot of clinics out there at the moment, if they look at what they have and the type of patients, if they elevate that patient experience with some of the things they do in their clinic and small wins. This is not something that's revolutionary, right? It's more of, okay, what is it that's happening in the clinic that needs to be standardized, or making sure that every patient experience is the same. The care between the care appointments, because obviously a lot of other businesses, a lot of other industries, professions have done it well. They keep in contact with their patients and between the care appointments. But also when it comes to the Dsmile product range, it's more of, okay, well, how can this sustainable product engage patients a bit more? And, what's the range? What's the whitening product that's going to, again, excite patients about the brand, the electric toothbrush and everything else, and the tech and the AI around this piece. The other thing as well that we probably, a lot of our patients that sign up to the Dsmile, journey or to, the wellness movement, they do get online support from a dental professional. So we do have a chat line that is mined by OHTs and sometimes nurses. And if there are any particular concern or queries and questions, that they can reach out to us as well to help them through it.
Yeah, fantastic.
Because we know that DIY dentistry is absolutely out of control these days. There was an article, I think Matt Hopcraft or whatever shared, it was on ABC the other day, the Victorian president of the ADA. Yeah. And I shared some stats that we did. We shared a survey that we did in 2020. We sent a survey to 1,000 patients across Australia to try and see. This is during COVID when people couldn't access dental services, so we needed to try and work out how they. What we found is that 60% of males between the ages of 18 and 35 have attempted to take their own teeth out. I actually couldn't believe it first, and I thought, no, this can't be right? So this is sort of part of the Dsmile Care Foundation that we started a while back. So anyway, I was sharing this information with our team.
Yeah.
And I said, look, this is the results and this is what happened. And at every clinic, someone said, yeah, I know my son-in-law, my father-in-law tried to do that. I know my uncle have tried to do that.
Yeah.
My girlfriend's boyfriend tried to do that. So it is actually more rampant than we think. So yeah, 50% of people reach out to influencers and work out, should I use charcoal toothpaste? Toothache remedies is quite big as well, whitening remedies as well. So I think having that online support by dental professionals is quite important. I know a lot of clinics do it anyway. I know a lot of clinics now sort of have that chat line to support their patients without having to sort of pick up the phone and call them. More of a chat line.
I think sometimes, I think sometimes people who are working in dental surgeries can think that what they observe over their years in seeing patients come in and out, that's the average. This is what's going on out there within the community. However, you mentioned Matt Kraft just before. A couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago now, he was in the audience of an insight program on SBS called The Dental Gap. And I encourage every team that I work with to watch The Dental Gap, because what it does, it highlights you to the broader community who you never see. So you don't kind of include them in, this is the trend of dentistry. No, look at the people that don't ever come because they're either ashamed, or they have no money, or they have tremendous fear, or for whatever reason they're not turning up. When you start to look at these stories of these poor people standing up in this audience talking about their particular experiences and what they experience right now, constant discomfort, constant pain, can't get a job because they're missing teeth, all the things, that's where you start thinking to yourself, gosh, dentistry is pretty damn important. And whatever impact we can make to help more people achieve greater levels of oral health, it's extraordinarily impactful. I don't think there is another physical element to our bodies than our smile that, if it was absolutely at the bad end of the spectrum, missing teeth, bad breath, decay, all the things, not when you're eating, when you're and speaking at the same time, you're not keeping all the fruit in your mouth, all those awful things, that would impact your self-confidence as much as your mouth.
Oh, it's without a doubt. Obviously during the Dsmile Care Foundation phase, you do start to tap into these, communities that don't have access to dental services, and and even you talk to colleagues that work in the public sector and you think, God, the system is totally broken. People are struggling out there, and obviously the most disappointing thing, it's something that's totally preventable. Right. And, if you starting from a young age with kids, I guess, teaching them good oral habits and diet and so on. Look, I think we've done a long way. We've come a long way in the last two to 3 decades in terms of education and raising awareness. And that's sort of what we're trying to do. I mean, obviously the Dsmile Care being an exciting brand that is sort of aspirational, that's and also it's quite affordable. So if we sort of want to compare like for like, with say supermarket brands, it is actually a lot cheaper than a lot of these brands. And we've done some analysis. So our toothpaste is obviously, with the desensitizing aspect, it is quite affordable, and it compares quite well with the Sensodyne or the other desensitizing toothpaste out there. Same thing with the mouthwash, because it's a concentrate. It's equivalent to 2 to 3 months worth of mouthwash bottles, six 500 ml bottles. So what we want to try and do is sort of say, okay, well, how can we make this more affordable? But then again, I'm quite hopeful, because if you look at what people did, when you look at the skincare routine many years ago, or even the hair care, most people used to probably look after their hair using simple products, whereas now it's much more engaged. And I do feel people are getting more and more awareness. And there are a lot of other dental products on the market at the moment that are sort of being launched and so on. So I do feel that space is getting better and better. So, but look, there's a long way to go, but we still work at it. So,
but there's
thanks
progress.
to you as well. Yeah, absolutely.
So going on a slightly different tack now with Dspa, what's the connection with Dsmile, Dspa?
Right. So Dspa is a group of clinics that I started 20 years ago. Right. So I remember, graduated from Melbourne Uni, going out there 2 years into dentistry. I thought, quite excited. As a new grad, you always sort of come out there and start thinking, is this it? It's almost like, the grass is always green on the other side. And do I want to buy a practice? Do I want to sort of stay here? And do I want to go and specialize? For me, it was more of patients coming in constantly complaining about being at the dentist, and I'm not sure whether they still do it now, nothing against you. I just hate coming to the dentist. And that's where the concept of D-Spa, which is a dental spa, came about. So the first dental spa, D-Spa, that I started was in South Yarra, and it was a hygiene-based whitening center. So we didn't do any dentistry. It was, and I do remember at the time, people used to come in and say, what's a dental hygienist? I just want to see a dentist. And you do whitening, how does that work? And I remember sort of, setting that up. It was quite exciting. I was sort of quite young, sort of 29, 30. And
as an observer of your work over the years, it's been fantastic to see someone do things a little bit differently, to be honest with you, as well, because it has been the same old for a long period of time.
Yeah. It was terrifying, because I remember opening the doors, and I do remember the industry, everyone's like, what's this guy doing, right? It's even to the point where you sort of, I wouldn't say you doubt yourself, but you start thinking, God, all I'm doing is trying to reduce barriers here, explain to people what's involved, sharing with them fees and letting them know how much things cost in a beautiful environment. But then again, patient validation was, they love the concept. And within 2-3 years, we had set up another clinic and a third clinic. So we had 2 on Collins Street. And then a few years later, we set up a clinic in Port Melbourne, Melbourne Medical Dental. So it was hygiene-based, whitening cosmetic center to start with. So there was a sort of a big focus on OHT program. We sort of developed that, and it was sort of at one stage we were probably the largest in the country when we first started. So there was a lot of focus on that. So that's basically the D-Spa clinics, and still involved. Obviously, we sold to corporate many years ago, but we are still, I am still sort of involved in mentoring, coaching, and teaching the team here. But also, the good thing about the D-Spa clinics is everything that we've done with Dsmile is basically comes from feedback that we gathered from colleagues. It's the patient base has been incredibly generous with their feedback. And so that when we, I guess with Dsmile releasing that, it has been after many years of feedback from patients and oral hygiene therapists. So look, it's exciting. I still love the dental side of it. It's challenging. And I'm probably, you probably shared the same thing there, Julie, with COVID. I think running a dental clinic now is quite, sometimes you see people doing well, but I guess the vast majority of clinicians out there, especially now with inflation and people are sort of struggling. And I know a lot of colleagues that have been in the industry are sort of, trying to make the most of it, try and go in there and deliver the best value. But it's not, it's something that will pass. I mean, I've gone through it in 2001 during September 11, during the GFC. I mean, that was sort of quite challenging. And there was a period you probably remember as well, where there was oversupply of dentists, and you think, oh God. And I think this is something that we'll go through again. And I think within a year or two, we'll sort of come out the other end. Feeling well. But that's the D-Spa. Hope that answers your question.
It does. No, it's fantastic. And, it obviously works as well. And as you explain the concept, one of the things that could be said is, but the patients get all of that at the dentist already. Why would you need a separate location for that? And medical already do it. there's already preventive health centres, and if you need it, then you go to the doctor. There's dietitians, there's psychologists, there's so many support services that kind of branch out from that GP, and dentistry is the same. The dentist is the one that's providing, I suppose the specialists are the ones that's providing the most expertise in their particular field, and then you've got the broader dental group, the practitioner group, and now we've got OHTs and hygienists as well, but they're all branching feet in the same thing. At the core of everything is making sure that we are doing whatever we can, not just to educate, but engage patients in their own oral health and helping them feel that they are responsible for it, but giving them the tools to be able to be responsible for it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know there are great OHTs now, obviously with provider numbers, they're setting up their own clinics, and I do feel eventually we're going to have a large number of people coming through that don't need the root canals and the crowns and so on. So they do need someone that's going to basically deliver that education and these services. So it's incredible. And I think, as the profession expands and people are more and more aware of where to access certain services will be more. And I do feel that dentists, in a way, as these services become specialized, dentists can then focus on the high-end restorative work that they really enjoy. I mean, I know after 3 or 4 years of coming out of uni, I know a lot of dentists want to focus on that and less on the hygiene and education part of it as well. Mm-hmm. So it's a win-win for everyone, I do. And
it is a win-win. I think
a lot of clinics, right, and you probably know as well, Julie, you consult to a number of clinics. Clinics that have hygiene departments tend to be patients much more engaged. The outcomes, the patient outcomes are a lot better, and dentists are a lot happier because everyone's doing the part that they love.
Yeah, and the dentists are free to, their hourly rate goes through the roof. And once you really step a dental practitioner who hasn't normally in the past used a hygiene department or OHT department, once you step through the finances and patient experience, patient engagement, all of a sudden, and treatment plan acceptance rates as well, and the successful results of the treatment plans themselves as well, it starts to open their eyes up of what the potential is for them, because it is markedly different to just practicing general dentistry all the time.
Do you find with clinics now, Julie, that are there still clinics that don't have hygiene departments, or is that
enormous numbers? I was just speaking to Amina this morning. Amina is my buddy. We both do the dental practice management program together and 90-day boot camps and things like that together. We're slowly becoming one. We've been separate for a long time. We're slowly merging into one person. And she was mentioning too, obviously over in America, hygiene is just part of every dental practice over there. South Australia has been way ahead of other states here in Australia, but there are still, absolutely, it is a long, convincing process to try to have some traditional approached dentists to understand the impact that a hygiene department can make. And my journey in dentistry started, I'm 52 now, so when I was 17, went through a number of different practices, had my own practice, never came across a hygienist.
That's gutsy. What year did you have your own practice?
I was 33 in 2003, and I was lucky enough to buy a practice from David Fennick, an absolute legend, wonderful human being in Brighton. So a nice affluent area of Melbourne, and so I had that for 10 years and loved every minute of it. Of course, it was totally uncomfortable and lots of ups and downs along the way. But when you embrace that kind of journey, you can just feel, see how much control you have over the environment for patients and team. And, hopefully the intention is to make it as wonderful for all involved as possible.
No, look, I think you're right. It's the control and even, and this is where I encourage a lot of my friends and colleagues is you'll have more control over what you do. You have a team that supports you, and your hourly rate is a lot higher. And more importantly, they'll be a lot happier because they're seeing less patients, right?
For sure. They're less stressed. How many dental practice owners are out there going, oh, God, I have to come in on the weekends to get all the admin side of things done? Well, it's far more easily incorporated into your day. So if people were out there thinking, I really want to incorporate Dsmile into my practice routine for my dental patients, what's their best next step? What's the pathway towards that?
Is to reach out to us. There's a professional page to actually put their interest in, or reach us by phone, and we'll be happy to basically. We've got an incredible team of OHTs. We've got Carolyn, there's myself. We'd be happy to connect, engage with them, supply them, give them all the details, even sometimes encourage them to come and visit the clinics and talk to our team and see how it's being done.
Nice.
And learn from them. So, it's quite easy. And we look forward to sharing what we've done with as many people as we can.
Oh, I think it's absolutely magnificent. And, you talked a little bit before about niching. We don't want to be all things to all people. This is a beautiful way of being something very, very special to a niche part of the market, which will sustain your dental practice regardless of inflation, regardless of other external factors that are going on. You'll have this core hub of patients that are perpetual, take their oral health very, very seriously, and just want to be delighted with the experience. And this is one way you can do it.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks for your time, and thanks for your listeners as well.
Beautiful. I love the product. So do jump onto dsmile.com. It is in the show notes, the link's in the show notes, and do at the very least connect, have a conversation with Dsmile and see how it can make a difference to your practice. Thanks so much for joining me, Joe. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Likewise. Thanks, Julie. Have a nice day.
If you enjoyed today's podcast, then you should come along and join the club. The club is a whole library of lunch and learns, with new lunch and learns being produced all the time, that help your dental team gain greater success in your systems, in your team behaviours, in your patient management, in your patient engagement, in their treatment plans. They are usually around half an hour in length, and so team members can sit down, be paid for their lunch break, eat lunch while they're being inspired, and delivered all of these insights and strategies that can be implemented so you all achieve greater levels of success. Also, Amina and I, my buddy from Dental Management Expertise, have a company, Dental Business Mastery, together. And our flagship online 1-year course for dental practice managers and dental practice owners to learn how to very successfully manage your dental practice is available. Head over to dentalbusinessmastery.com.au to find out more information, and has information about any other courses that we've got available. Also, make sure you do jump onto my website, julieparkerpracticesuccess.com.au, and you will see a whole load of free information. There are articles, the blog, downloads, templates, a whole load of things that are designed to help you overcome any specific challenge that you've got going on in your practice at the moment. If you have any suggestions of topics or guests that I can have on the podcast, please let me know. Thanks for listening.